Hi.
Hi.
All right, so we need to find our P, okay, and then our nominal income, okay. The nominal income is M times V, right? M times V, but we know that V equals 1 over K, okay. V equals 1 over K. So MV is the same as M over K. M over K. So here our M is 400. So what is 400 divided by 0.25? That should give us 1,600. 1,600, which is not 1,450. Okay, which is not 1,450. And then let's find P2. We have 400 equals K, which is 0.25 times Y. We've been given Y as 1,000 times P. So if you want P is M over KY, which is 400 divided by 0.25 times 1,000. Please do that and let's see what you do. I think it's 1.6. Come again.
1.6.
1.6. 1. So you see that P2 is not equal to this. So the answer is false. Okay, and then the explanation is just the mass that you do. Okay, so do the math to prove that the price is not 2.5 and then the Y2 is not 1450. I hope we understand. And then the nominal income increases to 2,100 if money supply increases to 500. So now they are saying that if we increase the money stock from 400 to 500, then our nominal income PY is supposed to increase to 2,100. As I said, M times V or M over K is your nominal income. Okay. So now M is no more 400, but 500. So what is 500 divided by 0.25? You see that I think that one is 2,000. It's 2,000. So it hasn't increased to 2,100. This statement too is false. So you just do the math to prove that when M is equal to 500, PY or the nominal income is not 2,100 but 2,000. Then you are done. Okay, then you are done. For the questions that the uncertain normally answers is the question, you need more information before you can either reject or accept the statement that they will give you. Okay, so if they give a statement and then they've left out some information, then you have to be uncertain. It will be needed through or false. Then you state that you need that information before you can answer that particular question. Okay, and then for the true or false, I'm suspecting the factors that cause shift in the IS and then the LM, and then the factors that cause changes in the slopes of the IS and then the LM. So you have to master those things. Because of time, most of the times we don't go there to go and think. You have to think before you go there. So know all these things. When this happens, it's supposed to be this. As soon as you see the question, you don't think much. But if you think too much, you see that they will say stop work, yet you can answer the question. That's the painful part. If you can't answer it and they say stop work, you don't have any issue. But if you can do it and they say stop work, you look at how you feel. Okay, so let's check that one too. And then the third question says that the statement says the LM curve shifts upwards to the left if income sensitivity of money demand parameter decreases. Okay, when it decreases, we need to know that the slope of the LM curve is B1 over B2, right? B1 divided by B2, where B1 is the interest sensitivity of income sensitivity of money demand, and B2 is interest sensitivity of money demand. So if there's a change in B1, it doesn't cause a shift. Okay, it doesn't cause, it changes the slope of the LM curve. It doesn't cause a shift. So that statement is supposed to be false. Okay. So maybe this question that they are bringing a shift. What if they stated that with an increase in this parameter, the LM curve becomes steeper? Is that true or is that false? Okay. Please, I'm taking a statement. The LM curve becomes steeper if the income sensitivity of money demand parameter decreases. Is that true or false?
Again, please, again.
The LM curve becomes steeper if the income sensitivity of money demand parameter decreases.
True.
Why
True.
is it? Abi, you state it and then you give an explanation, right? So why is it true? You see, just know that the curve becomes steeper if there's an increase in this ratio. Okay, the curve becomes steeper if there's an increase in this ratio. So if B1 is decreasing, you see that there will be a decrease in this ratio. So the curve won't become steeper. It rather becomes flatter. See that we have concentrated so much on the interest elasticity of money demand. That is this B2. Okay. We don't even think about the numerator. This one, we know that if money demand is interest insensitive, it means that this B2 is very small. If this B2 is small, if the denominator becomes smaller, the ratio will go up. That makes the LM curve steeper. Okay, but this one, they are not talking about B2, they are talking about B1. That's the income sensitivity of money demand. If it increases, then this whole ratio here will go up, which means that the LM curve becomes steeper. But if it falls, then it becomes flatter. So please, we check all those things. Okay, if you don't take your time, you just state, and I think it's true or false. If you state true and it's not true, it is wrong. No amount of explanation can make it right. Okay, so let's check this. Even before we look at the IS curve 2, that one too is 1 minus marginal propensity to consume divided by the interest elasticity of investment. Okay, 1 minus B divided by I. So when
what is that?
This one is what we use to measure the slope of the IS curve. 1 minus marginal propensity to consume divided by the interest sensitivity of investment. You see that this one too, if you check the questions that you solved, there was a question on this marginal propensity to consume term in relation to the IS curve. But most of the times we consider only the interest sensitivity of investment. You see that when this value, when this I here is very low, that's when investment is less sensitive. The IS curve is steep. Why? Because the ratio becomes bigger. If the denominator is very small, then this ratio becomes bigger. So for interest sensitivity, we know. What about the marginal propensity to consume? If the marginal propensity to consume is very high, it will make the numerator very small. Are we together? If marginal propensity to consume is very high, let's take this numerical example, just assuming the I is 1, okay? And then let's take the marginal propensity to consume to be 0.5. So we'll have 1 minus 0.5, which is 0.5 divided by 1. That will give us 0.5. So when the marginal propensity to consume is 0.5, the slope to is 0.5. Now, what if marginal propensity to consume increases to 0.6? If it goes to 0.6, now we have 1 minus 0.6, which is 0.4. What is 0.4 divided by 1? That will be 0.4, right?
0.4.
So
Yes.
because the marginal propensity to consume has increased, you see that there's a reduction in what? In the slope of the IS curve, which means that the initial one was steeper. As I always say, the larger or the bigger the slope, the steeper the curve. So if you increase the marginal propensity to consume, it reduces the value, which makes the IS curve flatter. Okay, so please let's know all these things before we go. If these questions come, you are supposed to see them as bonus. You are supposed to see them as bonus. Yes, Kwame.
Can you please repeat the intuition?
Sir, please.
Someone was speaking before Kwame. Who said something?
Sir, please, I said, can you please repeat the intuition?
For which one? This one?
Yeah.
No, the other one.
This one?
Yes,
Or
please.
this one, the LMK.
I think both
Yes,
of them.
please.
Oh,
Both.
Yes.
What I'm saying
So
is
can you
that
please? Yes.
what I'm saying is that this is what we use to measure the steepness of the LMK. Okay. And the larger this value, the larger this ratio, the steeper the curve, which means that the curve will be more steep if there's an increase in the numerator and a decrease in the denominator. Are we together, Monica? Are we together? The steepness depends on the ratio B1 over B2. Okay, B1 over B2. So if there's an increase in the numerator holding the denominator constant, the ratio will increase, which will increase the steepness. Okay. If there's a reduction in the numerator holding the denominator constant, it means that there will be a fall in the ratio. So there will be a reduction in the steepness. And this B1 here is the income sensitivity of money demand. So whenever there's an increase in the income sensitivity of the money demand, then the LM curve becomes steeper. Is that okay? Are we together?
Yeah. Yes, please.
Good. So
And
that
sir,
is what.
What about the B2?
The B2 measures the interest sensitivity of money demand, the interest sensitivity of money demand. As at now, we know that when money demand is less sensitive, the LM curve is steep, right? When money demand doesn't really depend on the interest rate, it makes the LM curve steep. Why? If money demand is less sensitive, the B2 will be very small. B2 will be very small. And if the denominator is very small, it will make the ratio very large, making the curve steeper. But if money demand is more sensitive, the B2 will increase. So the B2 will be high. If the denominator is increasing, holding the numerator constant, it means that this whole ratio will fall, which will reduce the steepness. Are we together?
Yes, please.
So you can just use the mass. This one, just write it B1 over B2. Okay, knowing that the larger the ratio, the steeper the curve. So if one is falling, just come and cause a reduction in that variable here and see what is going to happen to the ratio. If there's an increase in the ratio, the curve will become steeper. If there's a decrease in the ratio, the curve will become flatter. Is that okay? And that's the same thing for the
Yes, sir.
IS curve. That's the same thing. Okay. In these things, I think those days, I'll just write these things down. If I don't remember the intuition, I'll just use numbers. Okay. Just change it. Change your B. If increase it, what is happening to the ratio? If there's an increase in the ratio, it means that the curve is becoming steeper. If there's a reduction in the ratio, it means that the curve is becoming flatter. I hope that's okay.
Sir, please,
Yeah.
the ratio, the I minus B, is it the big I or the
It's not,
small I?
it's not IO, it's one. This
It's-
is 1 minus B over I. The big I is investment. This is small I, the interest sensitivity of investment.
Okay.
So like the investment functions that I gave, this I will measure the 50 and the 20.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank.
Okay, if you look at the fourth statement, those old people, I guess supply curve shifts to the right if labor becomes more productive. When labor becomes more productive, there's an increase in demand for labor. Okay, there's an increase in the demand for labor. For B1 or C1 or C2, it depends on how they define the variables. At times they use C, at times they use B. They are the same. Okay, they are the same. And if you see B as marginal propensity to consume, then they will use C1 and then the C2 for income sensitivity of money demand and interest sensitivity of money demand. But if you see B1 and B2, then they are using those ones for the money demand. Therefore, they will use C1 and C2 for the consumption function. So it's just a matter of notation. Right. When money demand and when labor becomes more productive, it causes an increase in the demand for labor. Okay, let me draw it. I would like it to white space. We have this. Let's take this as the labor market. Okay, so this is our Y. This is N, and then this is the real weight. Now, when labor becomes productive, okay, if labor becomes more productive, firms will increase their demand for labor. You want to hire labor so that the person can produce for you. Now, the person can produce more. So it means that the benefit that you get from hiring labor has increased. And as a result, you can now buy more. So this will be the new equilibrium. There will be an increase in N. So because of an increase in N, we'll have an increase in Y. Okay. We'll have an increase in Y. So if there's an increase in Y, then it means that the AS curve is going to shift because there will be a rightward increase in Y. Okay. So this is what we have to know before we go and check what the question
Sir,
is.
please, can you take it again?
Someone was asking a question. Let me address that. Please, the 1/1 minus B, that one is the KO. But what we're talking about, we're just trying to measure how steep the IS curve is. Okay, and that one is 1 minus marginal propensity to consume over the interest sensitivity of investment. There's no way we can measure the steepness of the IS curve without having the interest sensitivity of interest rates. Okay, so what you wrote here is for the K when we are finding the changes in Y as a result of changing J or changing Y. Okay, but what I was talking about was about the slope of the IS curve. Yes, and the person who asked the last question too, yes. If it falls, if the slope falls, then the curves become more flatter. Okay. Right. So please, I am taking the labor market thing again. This is our initial equilibrium. Okay, labor supply equals labor demand. So our N is here. Now you trace it to the production function or curve to get your output level. Now, labor has become more productive. Okay, now the benefit of hiring labor has increased. If you remember, we said the firm will keep on hiring labor until the benefit that he gets equals the cost. And that made the equation MPN equals W over P. Your MPN is the benefit that you get from hiring labor, and that is the marginal product of labor. We use it to measure the effectiveness, the effectiveness or how productive labor is. Okay, how productive labor is. So if that's the case, if you are now getting more benefit from hiring labor, then you tend to buy more labor. So the labor demand curve will shift to the right. Okay, so this will be the new equilibrium point. It means there'll be an increase in N. And as long as there is an increase in N, we'll have an increase in Y. So if you go to the aggregate supply curve, there's a change in Y. So the aggregate supply curve too will change. Okay. So this is the intuition. Let's go and look at what the question was actually asking. Aggregate supply shifts to the right if labor becomes more productive. Yes, it will shift to the right when labor becomes more productive. I hope we understand.
Sir, please come again, or I didn't hear, please.
When they increase there's an increase in the productivity of labor, if labor becomes more productive, okay, there will be an increase in the demand for labor. There will be an increase in N, which will cause an increase in Y. If there's an increase in Y, it will cause a shift in the AS curve. So it makes the statement true. Okay, the curve will shift to the right if labor becomes more productive.
All right, thank you.
All right. And then they viewed monetary and fiscal policies as ineffective. Okay, someone just asked a question about that. For fiscal policies, we saw that when the government increases, assuming the government increases its spending, okay, and it tries to finance it through the bonds market, it causes an increase in interest rate, okay, and that causes the crowding out. And under this system, we have 100% crowding out. Okay, we have 100% crowding out. 100% crowding out means that the latter fall in private spending, partly from investment and partly from consumption, will totally offset the initial increase in government spending. So there will be no change in the income level, but there will be changes in the components of aggregate expenditure. Okay, aggregate expenditure. So in case you are asked to prove why the fiscal policy is ineffective, then use that diagram, the loanable funds market diagram. You do that, and then you show that the latter fall in consumption and investment will be totally the same as the initial increase in government spending. So there will be no change in the Y. And then about monetary policy too, if you increase your money supply, it causes an upward shift in the aggregate demand curve, and that will cause an increase in the price level. Because there's an increase in the price level, workers or labor will call for increase in nominal wage. So the nominal wage will increase proportionately to the initial increase in price. And as a result, there will be no change in the real wage. When you go to the labor market and there's no change in real wage, it means there will be no change in labor supply, there will be no change in labor demand. So the N won't change and the Y2 won't change. That is why monetary policy 2 is not effective in that system. But when you come to the Keynesian, from the IS element, all these things, we've seen what happens if government increases its spending. If there's an expansionary fiscal policy, there's an increase in the income level. Okay, we see an increase in income level. Though there's a crowding out under the Keynesian system, it's not 100%. It's not 100%, which means that the effect of the initial increase in GN will always be higher than the crowding out of the private sector. So at least you have some level of effectiveness from the fiscal policy. And then for monetary too, we've seen that if you increase money supply, it causes a reduction in interest rate. So there will be an increase in investment. Then there will be an increase in Y. So if you are asked to compare the two, this is what you have to do. A question like this is a whole thing on its own with quite a number of diagrams. So you talk about why it is not effective under the first system. Then you talk about how it's effective under the second system, the Keynesian system. Okay. So the VN is true, right? It's ineffective. Okay, and I'm sure you can do the VI, but I explained it extensively. ISK becomes flatter with an increase in the parameter measuring marginal propensity to consume. Is it true or false? Gideon.
Please, with that question, can't you say uncertain?
Which one?
With the 5.
Is it because of the marginal tax rate?
Yeah.
You see that there are even questions where you are asked to compare a pure fiscal policy to that of a change in the marginal tax rate. See that most of the times, if they are talking about fiscal policy here, they don't consider the marginal tax rate. If they want that, they specifically state it. You understand? They specifically state that is the marginal tax rate that they are talking about. But well, I can't. In some way, I can agree to what you are saying. So, if you state that you are uncertain, then it's in terms of the fiscal. You state that it will depend on the kind of fiscal policy that you are talking about. If it's a pure one, then it means there will be no change in why it will be ineffective. But if they use the marginal tax rate, then that should cause some changes output.
Because with the fiscal policy, when there is a reduction in tax,
even that one you have to be specific. If there's a reduction in lump sum tax, it will have no effect. Tax. Yes, so you have to be specific. Yes,
it will raise the income of the consumer.
Yes.
So if you write uncertain, you can take that argument to explain.
Yes.
Or to back your point.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Right. There was this question. I'm sure now for these questions you should be able to answer them. For the monetarists and then all those things, I didn't revise those ones. I didn't go through those ones. So as for questions regarding those stuff, you have to read those ones.
Yeah, I think we didn't even do that one. So
we didn't do those ones. Oh, okay.
Yes, the new classicals and the monetaries, you didn't do that one.
Oh, okay. I think it's because of the time, because you were even supposed to do rational expectation. But I'm sure you do those ones in 400. But we were taught, we had time to. It's fortunate or unfortunate you were not. Please, a question like this, I'm sure we should be able to deal with this. Explain how the effectiveness of fiscal policy is affected by the interest elasticity of demand for money and interest elasticity of investment. As for the that of investments, I'm sure we cannot do that, right? If investment is more sensitive, it increases the crowding out. If it's less sensitive, it reduces the crowding out, making it more effective. Okay, but about the interest elasticity of demand for money, if money demand is very, very interest sensitive, okay, you see that when you increase your government spending, it causes an increase in interest rates. Okay, but how does it do that? If you increase government spending, there's an increase in why there will be an increase in the demand for money. It means that we'll have excess supply of bonds, right? So the price of bonds will fall and the interest rate will go up. But the interest rate is going up because there's an increase in money demand, and they want to reduce this increase in money demand just to ensure equilibrium. So before money demand will fall, interest rate must increase. You see, there's an inverse relationship between money demand and interest rate. So because we want interest rate to fall, we have to increase the level of interest rate, okay? But by how much interest rate must go up depends on how sensitive money demand is to the interest rate. If money demand is very sensitive to changes in interest rate, after the increase in government spending, the increase in interest rate will be very small. And if the increase in interest rate is very small, the fall in investment will be very small, reducing the crowding out. You understand? Reducing what? The crowding out. So if money demand is more interest sensitive, if money demand is more interest sensitive, then when you increase your government spending, interest rate will increase by a very small margin, thereby causing a very small fall in investment, so that the crowding out will be very small, which will make the fiscal policy more effective. But let's look at the case where money demand is interest insensitive. It doesn't really respond to interest rate. It means that when you increase your gen, the interest rate must really go up before money demand will fall again. And as the interest rate is going up, then investment will keep on falling, increasing the crowding out. And whenever the crowding out is large, it makes the fiscal policy ineffective. Okay. So when money demand is interest sensitive, the fiscal policy will be more effective. If money demand is less sensitive, it will make the fiscal policy less effective. I hope we get the picture. Yeah, Gideon.
If the interest money demand is highly insensitive,
It's
it means
highly what?
Insensitive
Okay.
to interest rate, then it means the highest curve will be what? Steeper, like
No,
vertical.
No, that one is for LMO. Interest
No,
elasticity of money demand is for LM. It makes if
it means sorry, it means the LM curve will be what?
steeper.
Vertical.
It's not. It is vertical when it doesn't depend on it at all.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. When it is highly insensitive, that it doesn't respond to the interest rate.
And let's use perfectly. Okay. If it's perfectly interest inelastic, that is the B part. If the money demand is perfectly interest inelastic, it makes the LM curve vertical. Okay. And when it happens like that, when you increase your money demand will go up. So to cause money demand to fall, interest rate must go up, right? Now, because the money demand doesn't really depend on the interest rate, the interest rate will be going up indefinitely. It will just keep on going up, which means that the higher the interest rate goes, the lower the investment, the level of investment. Okay, so this one will ensure 100% crowding out. Okay, when the LM curve is vertical, that is the case under those old people. them the LM curve, that liquidity trap thing, the LM curve is perfectly vertical. So if you increase government spending, the interest rate will increase indefinitely, which means that the investment will fall indefinitely until the fall in investment will be exactly the same as the increase in government spending. So there will be no change in the Y at all. That is why when the LM curve is vertical, fiscal policy is totally ineffective.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Please, any other question? Any other question? I think I'm tired. So if you have a question, you can ask. We have like 2 minutes. If not 2, then please, before we go, I hope you know my brother, Sami Kwakwa. He said he has ambitions of going for the US president. So I will encourage you to rally behind him when the time comes, so that
I'm the campaign.
He's
I'm a
sending
manager.
small vocab.
oh, okay. So he will really be depending on your support. Okay.
Not small vocab.
Yeah.
Okay.
Please retake the VI for us, and please the VI.
Which one? This part.
VI. No. The VI.
The VI.
The two of us. Yes.
This one, eh?
Yes.
Now there is an increase in the marginal propensity to consume. Remember, I said the measurement is 1 minus B over I, right? So if there's an increase in B, it means that there's a fall in the numerator. So if there's a fall in the numerator, the whole ratio will fall, which makes the slope what smaller. And the smaller the slope, the flatter the IS curve. So yes, if there's an increase in marginal propensity to consume, the IS curve becomes flatter.
Okay. Thank you.
Someone is asking, how do you find out the actual tax amount if marginal tax is increased by a percentage? What tax are you talking about, Max? Max?